starting.
Hi, this is Mia for Mia's Kitchen Quest. Oh my gosh, the long-awaited Perfect Pie Crust episode on the why of pie. I've baked pie crust after pie crust after pie crust. I've studied all of the people who make pie crusts and all of their recipes and tried all different things and have come up with a couple of breakthroughs that make pie crust super easy and able to be done without any problems or any issues, including even if you use the most simple ingredients. So for today's video, I'm actually going to use the least expensive supermarket ingredients like Publix, our supermarket brand, butter and flour, and a dollar store pie dish to make the most fabulous pie crust you've ever made. You're going to be so proud of your pies from here on out. Okay, so here we go. Now the first thing is I want to clear a couple of words so that we know what we're doing. And I know this sounds kind of elementary, but we're going to go here. So first of all, we're going to bake. Now what bake means is it means to dry out using heat. So we're going to dry out a paste that we make, and we're going to use heat in an oven. That comes from the word roast. Now, also, we are going to bake a pie. Pie is a dish of fruit, meat, veggies, or cream or something with a pastry, and pastry means a dough made from flour, fat, and water, and that comes from the word paste, a soft substance made from mixing dry and wet ingredients. And the word pie comes from a bird. It means like a bird that collects. So you've probably heard of a magpie. That's really where it comes from, and I think why you see so many different little blackbird pies and different things connected with birds and pies. And if you think about it, if you think about a pie shell, it's almost like a little nest where birds might collect and put things in it. So it's kind of a cute little thing to know about pie. And then the last word is crust. And crust is a layer of baked pastry on the bottom or outer edges of a pie. So the crust would be the pastry, this flour and water, and that comes from a Latin word which means shell. So that's going to go on the outside here, which we are going to bake, dry out using heat. And so we are going to bake a pie crust. And I just wanted to make sure from the get-go that everybody had a full understanding of exactly what does that mean. Now I've kind of worked out what are the 5 T's, I call them, of baking a perfect pie. Time, temperature, texture, taste, and tenderness. Now time, you will need a little bit of time, and you can use a lot of time and leave things in the refrigerator overnight or leave things in the freezer for a while, and they're going to just be easier or better and better in a lot of ways. But you can also do this very quickly, so I'm going to show you how to do it pretty quickly. So that's good. Temperature, you want to try to keep everything cold. If your hands are really hot, cool them off. If you're, try to keep your ingredients cold, and in one of these instances I'm going to show you how that's really going to work for us to create texture. And also we're going to talk about taste. My personal opinion is that an all butter crust is best, even though you can use lard or shortening for either part of the crust or all of the crust. In my experience, lard gives it too much of an animal flavor, and it's good for 2 things. One, if you want to make something savory, like a beef pot pie or something, or chicken pot pie. Or the other thing that lard is good for is it's good for holding the shape. It causes the crust to hold its shape better. So it's got its pluses, but for me personally, I'm not willing to give up that butter flavor, not 1 single ounce of it. So I had to work out how to make a pie crust hold its shape pretty well and everything without losing 1 ounce of butter flavor. So that's about taste. And tenderness, that comes from a special trick that I'm going to teach you today, which I guarantee you've probably never seen anybody do. So here we go. I'm going to move this out of our way, and we are going to get to it here. All right, so I'm going to move this pie shell out of the way. Hi, Janice. Thanks for joining me live. I'm so happy to have you here. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to use this food processor, and I'm only going to make a single pie crust today. Let me grab this butter. Stay there, James, 1 second. I am going to make this pie crust, and I'm going to go ahead and use our grocery store brand, Publix brand flour, just to make a point that anybody can do this, and even the least expensive ingredients are still going to turn out a 100% perfect pie. Oh, good. Glad you're happy to be here too. That's super great. James is trying to help me. My son James, thank you James, is helping us out. All right, so the first thing is the recipe ingredients. So overall, if you're going to do a pie crust that is a double crust, you're going to use 3 cups of flour. And the reason I like to use 3 cups of flour and not 2 or 2.5 is because you've got to be able to have enough dough to make little designs, or if anything happens, you want to have a generous pie crust. So I like to do a big pie crust. So for half, I'm going to use three little half measures of or 1.5 cups of flour. But initially we're only going to put 1 cup of it in. So we're going to put 1 cup in. So there's half. Just use the bag, the side of the bag, to press the flour down instead of a knife. It's so much easier. Okay, so then you're just going to put 1 cup of flour in there. Now, this is all we're going to use. We're going to use kosher salt, water, flour, and butter. That's it. Okay, so the second thing is kosher sea salt, and we want 1/2 teaspoon of kosher sea salt. You can be on the generous side with that 1/2 teaspoon. Kosher salt is important because it makes the butter have a lot more flavor. It brings out the flavors, and regular table salt doesn't do that. So we're going to pop that in there and give it a few pulses. Okay, now here comes oh wait, forgot the sugar. Now we put a little bit of sugar in here. If you're doing a double crust, put a tablespoon. I'll put the recipes below. But basically we're going to pulse that in there. Okay, so basically now this is the part that's Mia only here. We have this basic phrase. We're going to take this out gently, and we are going to dust off that old grating blade that you used to, is probably hidden in your closet somewhere. In this food processor, it goes on like this. It just snaps in here, and this goes on here. It's not hard. I just say don't be afraid of the blade. Okay, we're going to put our grating blade on the food processor, and we're going to grate in all of the butter, which in this case is 1.5 sticks of frozen butter. So we like to build Bigger Bolder Baking's frozen butter, but instead of doing it by hand, I'm going to use the food processor. And so we're going to drop that butter in there. Here we go. And this makes it much easier to do than doing it on a hand grater. And so we're going to okay, and then we're going to take this off of here, and we're going to carefully take this blade off and get any other butter off of it or whatever. And we're going to put this blade back on. Now, in my food processor, that's not too difficult to do. Some processors, they lock, and if that's the case in yours, you might have to take the butter and flour out of here instead of doing this. But mine, it just nestles right back in there like that. So we're going to put that back in there. Now, this is why you don't put all the flour in there yet. We're going to make a paste out of this. So this is going to be loud for about a minute, okay? Actually, it's not too loud. We're going to let that go to what I call fat tire stage. Flat tire, not fat tire, where it starts to sound like your machine has a flat tire, like it's going thump, 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 thump. That's what stage we want to get it to. And I'm just going to let it run, and it's going to run, and all of a sudden it's going to come together, and it's going to start going da 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 da. You'll see. Okay, here it goes. I can already hear it. Here comes the flat tire. All right, there's our flat tire. Okay, we got our paste. So now we're going to turn off the machine. We've got this dough that's basically in a paste at this point. And now we're going to add the other half a cup of flour. So if you're doing this, a double pie crust, you probably need a little bigger machine, like a 14 or 16 cup. I think this is an 11 cup I've got here. It might be a 14, but it'll do a double pie crust. You might have to dump everything out and put the blade back in and out. It's just a little trickier, but it does work. So now we're going to process this with the pulse button just about 12 times maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's about right. Now if you look in there, you'll see the texture of that. You'll have some big pieces of butter and some regular. All right, now we're going to shake that out, and we're going to put this in here. I'm going to use this little bowl. I'm going to put it in a bowl. Get this little piece of butter out of there. Sorry, hope James. This is our first, really only second time live, so we're doing the best we can. I need this tool. Okay, so now we've got to have ice water, and okay, so we've forgotten all about it, right? So we're just going to stick some ice in water. That's just going to make it very simple to have cold water. We're just going to take a few pieces of ice and stick it in some water, and voila, you have cold water. So now start with about 3 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. It really, I think, takes about 4. Don't put any more than that before you do it. Now you're going to take your spatula and just push it with the spatula till it comes together. You see how it's just starting to stick together? That's all. The spatula is going to do it here. And I should have put out this plastic ahead of time, but I didn't. So we'll get it to this stage where it's just about right there. And it's come together. It's kind of coming away from the bowl. There's not really a lot of little pieces left in it. So now we're going to get a piece of plastic. I like this Stretch Tight from Costco because it's non-BPA, it's BPA free. And I'm actually going to get 2 pieces just because I like to I'm messy. So let me get this out of the road here. Thanks, James, you're so swell. All right, so here we go. And let's get this here and this here. And now we're going to dump this out on the plastic. Very simple. Get all the, don't worry if there's little stuff that's hanging out. We don't care about that. And if you want to, if you feel it seems a bit dry, just give it a little spritz. This you can buy from the dollar store, 99 cents or whatever, Dollar Tree. And then you're going to pick up the edges of this plastic like this and just squeeze it, like make a little thing out of it, a little ball, and just squeeze it together using the plastic, and use your hands and just kind of push it together like that. Don't worry if it looks like it has a few cracks in it and everything. That'll all settle out in the refrigerator. So now we're going to put this in the refrigerator for about 10 or 15 minutes just to cool it off. And then we're just going to come over here and get one that we've already cooled off. And then we're going to take this little bit of flour here. I kind of keep this in a little dish like this, which is easy to get my hands in and out of. And if you share a lot, I'm going to send you one of these little dishes. It's going to be my little giveaway. So here we go. We're going to flour the board, flour the roller, and then start rolling. And this is pretty dang cold. We probably let this get a little colder than we needed to here, but it's okay. Just turn it as you go. We're not rolling it out now. I'm just telling you something we're going to do here. This is the Mia technique. Now I'm going to be a little gentle here because this is pretty cold, but I'm still going to show you what we're doing. We're going to turn this and just get it into kind of a square, and we're kind of dragging flour as we go. If you noticed, I'm able to move this very easily. This dough is very easy to work with. You just want to make sure your rolling pin doesn't stick to it. But all we're going to do here now is we're going to borrow what is a technique from croissant making, and that is doubling over dough. So once you've got layers of butter in this piece of pastry, now we're going to do what they do when you make a croissant, and that is we're going to double the dough over and make layers. So back to the dough, we're just going to go like this and like this, and we're going to just squeeze it together again with our hands. Don't worry, it is going to roll out just perfect. Trust me, it works every time. I have had no problems. I've made all kinds of these pie crusts. Today I've made 6 of them, and they've all been perfect, one after the other. Back into the refrigerator to get cold and rest. So we're going to put this back in there, and it should be nice and cold and hard. And now we're going to roll out one that I already rested that's been folded, and we're going to get it into a pie pan. So 10 or 15 minutes, you know, this has probably been in there a little longer than that because we had to kind of get ready for this video. But you can use a French rolling pin if you want to. That's a personal choice. This is a rolling pin that's called a French pin, and basically it just allows you to sort of lean on the edges to make something more circular. You know, you don't have to have one. Just go back and forth gently when it's really cold like this. You just want to be gentle. Again, you want to have your surface floured and use the piece of dough to drag the flour around underneath. So go like this, kind of turn it this way, so it's kind of getting more circular as we go. And do not worry if this is not a perfect circle. You're going to cut off a bunch of it. So don't worry too much if anything happens to it, because you just want it to be big enough to go on the pie dish, and you don't care too much if the edges are all perfect or anything like that. So we're just going to keep rolling. You see how easy this is to handle. Now I have what's called a sill pad under my baking space here, but if you're having to use just a counter or something, just keep it well floured. That's all. No problem. Just keep it well floured. And then, now there's all kinds of schools of thought as to how you should throw the thing in the dish. This is my favorite. I just go roll it like this, and because we have so much flour on it, it's just going to go. Here's a pan from a Dollar Tree, so I'm just going to make this an everyman's pie crust by doing that. Here, we can lift this. It's very pliable, very easy to work with. Press it into the corners, and then Janice asks, how many turns are you going to do? I'm not sure what you mean by turns. Will answer me, and then I'll have to tell you I'm not sure what you mean by turns. Okay, so I'm going to cut off this using the bench scraper in my hand, but just be careful. This isn't a sharp blade. You can buy one of these at the dollar store also. They sell them at Dollar Tree. James will also put some links for anything you see here at the end of this. And if you have any thin spots, you can always put a little bit of dough on them. So these, stay there with the camera one sec. These, I just put the, if you don't want to decorate the pie on the edges with little cutters or something like that, just throw these in the oven, and you can put cinnamon on them and things like that, and just throw them in there for a few minutes. And then you can put cinnamon sugar or whatever on them. All right, then you're just, okay, this is only if you're doing a single pie crust, obviously. If you're doing a double, you have to fill it and everything. We'll do that on another day. So this is, we're just going to go around here and roll the piece of dough underneath. Just roll it under all the way around the edge. And that's why I like a pie pan that has a little edge on it like that, so that it holds and supports the crust, which becomes quite tender. Okay, so now this is another reason why I like this little gadget, because my fingers can stick in there. My knuckles are kind of big. So you have to kind of make really definite edges here, because without squeezing it so close to the pie dish that it breaks through there, kind of keep it up and above. But butter doesn't like to hold its shape very well, especially this dough, because it's going to kind of puff up and almost like a croissant. The only difference is this does not have yeast in it like a croissant dough, and but it's going to act very similar to it in terms of layers, and I'll show you that in a minute. But we're going to go ahead and crimp this all the way around, just using your knuckles and a finger, and you just push your finger in and 2 knuckles, and just make sure your knuckles are floured so that you don't stick to the pan, right? And just make those as definite as you can without squeezing it so close to the pan that you break through the pan. All right, now we've got our pie dish ready, and what we're going to do with this now is we're going to chill it down. Again, we have temperature on our side, so we're going to put this in the freezer. Now, I already have one in the freezer, and I'm just going to take this little baby out, put this one in. Thanks, James. He's doing such a good job. And I already have this ready. I like to buy parchment paper in packages like this. So you can just grab a piece of parchment paper out of something like this. You just grab it and you're going to pull it out. You buy them on Amazon. And so now we want to take this again from the dollar store. It keeps ceramic beads and rice and beans in here. And we're just going to put this in here like this, and we're going to put it in the oven. Okay, now if you're using a glass pan, you might want to give it a couple of minutes because you don't want it to go from one extreme temperature to the other. But with this pan, we can just throw it right in, and then we're going to set the timer for 20 minutes. And we were going to have one baking while we were doing all of that, so that I could show you. In 20 minutes, you're going to take it out and take that parchment out with the beads and just set it in another pie dish. And then you're going to prick the bottom of the crust like this and put it back in for another 5 or 10 minutes. And then in the end, when you pull it out, you're going to have this beautiful pie crust. And I kind of broke this one because I stuck my finger over there on a bubble. But this is very flaky and light. I want to show you some of this pastry dough, how it turns out. It's just got tons of beautiful little butter layers. You can see it just crumbles in your fingers. It melts in your mouth, and it has millions of little layers, and it's going to be absolutely delicious. So there it is, folks. That's the perfect pie crust. My true breakthroughs were grate the frozen butter and double the dough over so that it's like a croissant, and that's what makes it totally happen. And then just use all butter and keep your things cold. I hope this helps you. Let me know how it goes when you try to make one. This is Mia from Mia's Kitchen Quest. Send me your questions. I'll answer all your comments after the feed. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.